If you've ever been out in the dunes, there's one thing you'll learn really quick. You can't have enough light. Also, you can't be visible enough as safety to keep other people from running into you. So, we're gonna make sure that doesn't happen to us. I did install a set of these Comp rock lights, and they're RGB LED app controllable, so you can make them do whatever you want, change colors, etc. And there's 6 of these, one on each side in the middle, just behind the rear axle on each side of the frame, there, and there. The other 2 are in front of the front axle, mounted on the frame rail here and here. The cool thing about our Gladiator is it came equipped from the factory with the accessory switch panel down there on the dash. So that means it's wired for 4 different accessories under the hood here, which this is the controller for our RGB lights, but those other wires are right here, and we'll tap into those guys for these other lights, which are here. So we're gonna do a 4 cube setup. There'll be 2 on each side of the cowl with these brackets, all from Rough Country. So these guys will sit like this and then hold a cube on each side. I also want to drill and mount my whip flag holder, which basically is just thread this bolt up on the bottom side of this bracket. These are the Black Series LED lights from Rough Country. These are the 70903s, and you can tell they look a little different in there because they're the floods. And then these are the 70133 Black Series that are a little different on the housing because those are more of a focused beam or spot. They're both 36 watts. These are 2880 lumens. Same on both. And they're both waterproof, so they can ride around all the time. And so we'll face the spots towards the front and help with our headlights, and then we'll put the floods out this direction to give us a better view of things next to us and that we're approaching. These I'd like to call party sticks. Now these are about as cool as it comes whenever you're out there in the dunes at night. They're all RGB LEDs. Rough Country's nice enough to send a free flag with each one of them. They're 4 foot long. They're controlled via a remote that they send with it. You only have to hook up a positive and a ground, and then your remote control will do the rest. And these are very low voltage. The great thing too is they're quick release. So whenever you mount this section somewhere on your vehicle or, well, ATV, UTV, then you pull the collar and then you can remove it and disconnect the electrical connection. Now the plan is for the party sticks, if you will, or the LED whips, so we're going to mount them back here. The idea is if they're mounted here, because of the way, and you can't tell it from in here, but there's a frame inside this glass, and so if this stays out of the view of the driver's mirror or out of their light behind their head, it won't be so distracting when you're riding around at night out at the dunes by having a bunch of colors flashing just behind you. So safety third, and that's how we're going to achieve it. Let's get started. So I've cut off the switch ends of the harness from Rough Country, as you can see, for both of these kits, and just left the blue wires hanging out and just trimmed the other ones back into the loom, and then tied the 2 blue wires together into this connector. And then this is our power feed from our number 1 switch inside the cab with our factory accessory auxiliary switches. This is the switch number 3 or number 4 that sends power, and this will go back to what I'm calling our party sticks that will mount back there just behind the cab. So once we heat shrink these 2 we're basically done with the wiring under the hood, and we can go towards the mounting side of this project. Alright, that'll make a nice weatherproof seal on the wiring and keep the wires from wanting to pull out from the connector. Then I'm going to use my signature electrical tip hockey tape. This will just add a little more level of security to this wire not coming out of this butt connector for any crazy reason. If anyone was to get in here, including myself, messing around with anything, adding future modifications, and not pulling a wire out and not understanding why everything quit working. All right, so with all the wiring done, all we've got left are these four little guys to go to our light cubes. So what I've done is go ahead and remove all these plastic clips that hold this cowl down. It's easier to just raise the hood all the way up and set it against your roof so you can pry these loose. And then of course remove these four bolts, because they're going to be replaced with bolts from Rough Country. Now what this allows me to do is raise this up nice so I can get the wires through here and take them all the way underneath to the other side and hide them in here really nice. And they'll just come out behind this bracket and hook up to the lights. This is one of the brackets. I've gone ahead, I did a little test fit with one and saw that I'll probably need to move one of these lights a little further away towards the center of the truck. And then of course this other one is going to be turned a little more this direction as a floodlight. So this spring for the whip flag does flex, and what I don't want it to do is flex over against one of the lights and turn it, and then you're running out in the dunes and you have one of your forward facing lights not pointing forward anymore. So I've got the housing all mocked up and the lights are mounted to the bracket. You can see we've made plenty of room for this spring to move without coming into contact with any of these lights. Now here's a little tip. If you're wondering what to do with this as you're wiring it and before you bolt it down, I get an old beach towel or something and wrap it around the bracket and the lights, because you're going to have a bit of a fuss running these pigtails. Now we can just leave those laying there. They're not going to scratch anything. And then we can maneuver and operate freely with these wiring connections to get them tucked where we want without worrying too much about what our lights are doing up there, doing any damage to the paint. So with all the wires complete for these cubes, and I went ahead and ran some hockey tape around all four of them, and then fed them under this little piece of foam here that I guess keeps the air from escaping out of the engine compartment. So now we can unwrap these guys. Rough Country sends the spacers and longer bolts to hold those down. So we've got those right here. Here's the spacers and longer bolts, and these are the factory bolts that we won't be reusing. But I go ahead and keep everything just in case. Usually like to go ahead and test the threads before we get too excited. Make sure they're going to run down in there properly. I think we're going to be okay. There is some thread locker left over from how the factory put this together with those bolts, a little bit of that paste. Now let's go test it. All right. One last detail to take care of in the truck. I'm going to go into our settings. I'm going to scroll down to auxiliary switches. And we have these 4 cubes set on the auxiliary 1 wire. Now it's set to latching and it's ran off ignition. I'd like it to be selected to battery, because there's sometimes I may just want to jump in when this is turned off and be able to just turn those lights on without everything else being on. They don't pull a lot of current anyway. So before I get too overzealous, so I pulled the 2 feeds up here and I have these laying in the bed because I'm not big on mounting something before we've tested it. So remote control and on. Now, in case you were wondering how I'm going to get that nut tight on the backside, I'm going to do it from underneath with a whole lot of extensions. That ought to get it. Now we test again. So that's not likely going to make contact with the cab when we're off-roading. So what I wouldn't want is to look in my mirror and see that thing flashing, which I really can't. Now from here I can see it, but it's not really making a big fuss as far as lighting up inside the cab. So I think our location's perfect. I'm not even shocked. Alright, that one didn't go near as easy, but we got it. So they're both on there. Oh yeah. You like that, Boomer? That thing is crazy bright. So here's our wrap up with what our headlights can see. This is the factory HID LED headlights on low beam. There's high beam, you can see the trees out there some more. And now whenever I hit our cubes, that gives us coverage on the sides with those floods, as well as a lot of additional lighting in the distance and up higher where these miss. So it's substantially more light, but what we haven't shown you is the cool stuff yet. Now that's it and that's all. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later, y'all.